All right, after a snowstorm canceled my first screening, I've finally been able to watch the brand new Scream film, and I cannot wait to answer this phone call. Hello.
Hello, Austin. What's your favorite scary movie?
What's up?
You know I have to kill you, right?
Fair enough. What is up, Ghostface fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are watching Scream. Or it's Scream 5. That's what we're going to call it. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you like this review, let me know in the comments down below. Drop your thumbs up. And what is the best horror movie or horror revival to come out over the last couple of years? Can't wait to talk about it. Spoiler free, of course. 25 years after the original series of murders in Woodsboro, a new Ghostface emerges, and Sidney Prescott must uncover the truth. Well, you say Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette all returning their roles. I say someone like a Melissa Barrera, Jenna Ortega, Dylan Minnette, Jack Quaid, Mikey Madison. This is a really good cast. And the great thing about having such a talented cast is making it hard to decipher, discover, figure out who the killer actually is. And that's obviously the motive of the audience throughout the film, is to try their best to nail it down. Okay, who's it going to be? Where are we going with this Scream film? But more importantly, how are we bringing the franchise back? Because it's been a long time since the last one, something that they acknowledge in this movie, along with a plethora of other things. And that's kind of where I want to start, is the meta-ness, the meta-nature of the storytelling. It's something that Scream is known for, playing on horror films, but horror, it's changed over the last 10 years, and there are various influences and movies and this semi-artistic style of the horror film, one that I am personally a big fan of, that is making a huge impact. But then there are those diehard fans who just want to keep what we know and love about horror from the 80s and maybe even early 90s sacred, and keep that old school slasher type film going. And that is something that is heavily played on in this movie, to the point to where it also takes on fandom in its own way. Now, this is something I don't know what the response is going to be from audience members as a whole, but the response from me is, I'm sitting there thinking, this is really creative. Not only is it creative, but it has something to say. And not something to say maybe in the way that you're even thinking while watching this review. I'm talking specifically about the horror genre, the state of scares. That's what I'm going to call it. And the fact that it's talking about that, bringing in other genres and maybe even movies that we are familiar with into the equation, I won't go any further than that, but it was cool. It was funny because it was catching me so off guard. Some of the dialogue being a little bit on the nose. I'm like, all right, but at the same time, I just like the fact that they went for it. And a lot of that comes from these filmmakers, Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette from Ready or Not fame. Ready or Not being one of the more creative and inventive horror films I've seen in years. So I put two and two together, like they're so original with Ready or Not. Why wouldn't they bring that amount of creative energy into the Scream franchise? Of course it was going to be creative, but just because it's creative, just because it's meta, and even doing a nice job of keeping you on your toes throughout the film, a couple of predictable things here and there, and maybe I saw a twist coming personally, but that's probably because I'm a psychopath and I watch so many movies. Even with all of those things going for it, it all comes down to the characters. Are they likable, or are they so unlikable that you're just sitting there waiting and rooting for the deaths and the blood and all of that craziness to come? And it does hit hard. Now, there may be larger periods of time between those kills, and that's going to have some fans get a little bit antsy, and you can only spend so much time with some of these characters because some of them, I mean, the goal of that character is to clearly be either annoying or just kind of like, I don't like you for some reason. But there are other characters who are likable, and you want to be with them and be in the midst of those conversations. Now, diving into the plot itself and these two sisters, the fallout of the beginning events, the opening scene, if you will, which had so many great callbacks, but it's also kind of flipping the narrative on its head, which is much appreciated. That sends her on this mission, and there's a little crew surrounding her, but there's also this other crew of friends, and between all of those people, we as an audience were trying to sift through and say, is it that guy or girl? Is it not that guy or girl? Who could it be? No? Yes. No, yes. No. Yes, no. That was me throughout the whole movie. With the young cast, there are a couple of conversations that are had here. One monologue in particular, delivered by Jasmine Savoy Brown, who talks about something that was so, and I've already hit on this in the review, but I keep thinking about it, and it keeps making me like the movie more, and it allows me to look at these filmmakers and say, they just knew exactly what they were supposed to do, because Scream has always been that franchise that takes it in such an aware direction, but now it's on a totally different level, and the characters in the movie, they're experiencing things that they have seen in other movies, and they will tell each other that, like, okay, should we do this? I don't know if we should do this. It almost reminds me of, and I can't even remember what commercial that is. It's like, should we go into the huge building full of chainsaws, or should we run to the car? Now, that being said, characters still do stupid things in this movie. Absolutely. And there are still lines of dialogue that we've heard countless times in scary films. But because everything else is so self-aware, it almost makes me feel like even those lines, at the end of the day, they're writing this going, yeah, well, we know it's supposed to be in there, but we're also playing on all this other stuff, so it makes my brain like, were all of these things intended? Like, they clearly know what kind of movie they're making, and it all feels so intentional. And with that, like I said, comes certain elements that just don't quite come together. I believe some of those one-liners, some of that dialogue that they try to make feel fresh and new, it comes across as, okay, I don't know if that line worked, I don't know if that conversation is doing anything, and the film does occasionally pull you away from the action to have a conversation or two. I also want to say, while the core performances are great, there is some questionable acting and or line delivery, maybe more so specific lines, but some performances in there that didn't quite work, and there is some solid humor, and again, playing on the fact that it's in 2021, all of those things, but I wasn't laughing maybe as much as I wanted to, or even compared to some of the other sequels. When we spend some time with the OGs, those returning to this franchise like a Sidney Prescott or Gale or Dewey, oh my God, David Arquette in this film is so good, to the point to where I wish he would have gotten even more screen time. But even Courtney Cox and Neve Campbell, they're dynamic in the film, and just the way they're playing off of each other. At first, their involvement in the film felt a bit forced, a bit shoehorned. After we got that first scene, I'm like, okay, is this what it's going to be? But as soon as we get to see them interact with each other, I'm like, I love this. And it all just kind of wraps up in this bow that may feel a tiny bit rushed, and it may not have the perfect pacing and isn't quite as, we'll say, creative as the rest of the script. But I actually really liked the ending, the way it played out, because a couple of things did catch me off guard, and just the sheer amount of madness, and then the characters acknowledging that madness that happens. It's just like, it was great. I really enjoyed it. And still give us super entertaining films with a lot of blood and gore and crazy kills, and we're talking kills through the roof in this movie. Like I said earlier, I'm appreciating it the more I think about it, and I definitely want to talk about it more. So before I get into my score, thank you guys for being here. Drop that comment down below, man. Are you excited for this movie? Are you excited for Ghostface? Scream breathes fresh air into this beloved franchise, and these filmmakers do an incredible job of keeping you on your toes from start to finish. The meta nature of it all hits hard in an unexpected way, and the kills are as bloody as expected. This is a great entry into this franchise, and honestly, one of my favorites, and that's why I'm going an 80%. It is definitely one that is worth your time. A solid 4 out of 5 star film. So let me know, guys, what are you thinking about this film? And again, I expected to like it, but not on this level. I walked out with a smile on my face because it's been a while since I've gotten a slasher like that. You guys the best. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned. If you'd like to see a tier list, let me know.